Today we're doing a tutorial on SwiftUI. So a workshop I'm doing for Montclair State University Computer Club. Presenting March 2nd around 2:30 p.m. in a CS building. I believe it's room 212. So let's get started. I'm going to be building a rock, paper, scissors, shoot app. So let's get started by opening up Xcode. As soon as Xcode opens, it's going to ask us whether or not we want to create a new Xcode project. We create a new Xcode project here. This menu pops up, tells us, what are you going to be building? Application. You can do multi-platform objects, apps for macOS, watchOS, tvOS. Today we're just going to do one on app for iOS. Click next. So we're going to be doing a rock, paper, scissors game. Interface will be SwiftUI and the language is Swift. The organization identifier, you'll need to format your preferences. You have to either pay for a development account, I believe it's like close to $100 a year, or you could use a free one which doesn't have all the perks like being able to submit apps to the App Store by using your iCloud account. That can be done in the Xcode preferences. So let's get started. Let's click next. Find a place to put this. Put it on my desktop for now. As soon as this thing gets running, I just want to point out the UI of Xcode. On the left-hand side, we have our navigation pane. This is where our app bundle resides. All the information in regards to your app. Under the content view file folder, we have the rock, paper, scissors, shoot game. We have two .swift files in here. The first one tells the system to run your app. The content view is what provides the app with the code and UI necessary that we will be writing today. Underneath that is the assets catalog. This is where we import any images that we will be using. You could also import the app icon that you'll be using to submit to the store or for your personal device. So let's get back into this. This is the main part in the middle is where we're going to be developing our code. Content up top telling us comments of what your app is, who is it by, and the date. So we're going to be importing SwiftUI. We know that SwiftUI is a Objective-C based language, and to utilize the most important aspects of Xcode, we have to update the libraries, and that's why we import the SwiftUI. Under that, we have our content view struct. This is where our code gets placed. We have a content view structure that conforms to a view protocol. This tells the system that anything that's run within inside this body here will return some view of the elements of our choosing. Underneath that, we have a structure called content view. In here, content view preview. In here, this tells our automatic preview updater on the side right here. It'll run a preview of our app and what we have currently coded on the screen. So after this gets loaded here, I just want to point out that we have this pane on the right hand side. This is a big help. We have the attributes inspector. So what this will do, we can add custom changes to our objects. Like, let's just say we have hello world here. We can add different types of modifiers to this text variable and change what we want inside. The modifiers give us some kind of accessibility labels. identifiers, change the font, the weight of the characters, the color, the alignment of the object. Notice how in the middle it'll shift from left to right depending on where you wanted the alignment. We have padding. You can add padding to the left hand side so that it's shifted to the right a little bit or shifted up to the right a little bit, and bottom right. And then we also have a frame adjuster here, so we could adjust the size of the frame, how big we want this. And this will give us an adjustable size to make boxes and background shapes and colors to overlay or underlay our text objects and buttons and whatnot. Alright, so next we have this quick help inspector. So what this will do is it'll give us some documentation on textual based information on what we've selected. So if we want to find out some more information about let's just say let's create a variable in here. We'll call it string. It'll be a type string. We could find everything we need to know about strings here. We could check out this text object here, see what we can do with text objects. So now for the slider attributes, just want to give you a quick demonstration on how powerful this is. So let's just say we wanted to make a huge red circle with our text, big bold font. We'd highlight the end of this. We'd add some modifiers to a font of, let's say, large title, weight of bold, do a color of orange. We'll add a frame of 300 by 300. Then we could add a background color to it. And we'll have that color be red. And we'll add a clip shape to this. And have it become a circle. This should update right in the middle. Show us what we've created. Now, in this content preview, you can customize and choose which simulator you want to use. So most of the time, let's use most of the modern devices and get the most real estate with our screens. We also have a file inspector here. We can change what we call our project. So for example, I'm going to name this rock, paper, scissors game.swift, and that'll update our file name. That way we don't get confused or can customize it to our liking. That's enough for this. Let's try to get this content preview file working. To our iPhone 13 Max Pro. There's a big screen here. We're done with this navigator pane, so let's get this out of here and let's import our game images and declare variables and functions for rock, paper, scissors. So what we're going to do here, we're going to use this asset catalog. We're going to go into our workshop here, get our images, highlight these, and throw them in our catalog. One thing to note is that whatever you put in here, make sure the names are memorable so you can utilize them within your program. So what happens here is we have a 1x, 2x, 3x. This depends on what your screen size is. So for larger devices, we're going to be using the 3x. For smaller devices, we'd use the 1x. It all depends on the screen real estate, and Swift intuitively knows which ones to use depending on the pixel size, the pixel ratio. All right, so let's go ahead and declare some variables here. Let's get rid of this guy again. Bring this in. Zoom us out. Variables will go underneath the body, underneath the content view. So we're going to start off with how we're going to switch between views. We're going to have 3 separate views. We're going to have a first view, which is a welcome screen. We're going to have a game view, which allows us to choose options to play the game, rock, paper, or scissors. It's not your conventional rock, paper, scissors where you guys randomly, butt heads together and figure out who's going to be the winner after. This is more of a kids-based game. Give you an idea how buttons and text field work. So the game view, and then we have an overview, a final view, which will give you the stats at the end of the game and ask you if you'd like to play again. So let's get into this. We have our Boolean variables. We're going to declare those as the state property wrappers, private var, and we're going to call this first view. I'm going to set it to true. We're also going to have our second game view. I'm going to set that to false because we're going to be working on our first view. Next, we are going to have a variable for the user's name. We're going to set that to an empty string. And that'll be it for our first view. Now we'll set up our game view variables. We're going to have an array of choices to pick from, and that'll be a @state property as well called choices, and that's going to be an array of rock, paper, and scissors, just like how we named in our asset catalog. We're going to need to be able to choose these options and randomly get them chosen for the computer. So we're going to declare a non-property wrapper variable, just a private variable, get random choice, and we're going to set it equal to an int.random within the range of 0 to the array size, which is 2. Okay, that will give us our variable for the random choice. We need a game length. Game length is going to be, let's say, a max of 10 questions. So we're going to let max questions be a constant. We're going to set that equal to 10. We're going to need to keep count of these questions. So we need a property wrapper variable, checking state of the UI for a question count. Set that equal to 1. As soon as we start, it will make sure we have one started, one question already going. Next, we will add some player variables. Excuse me, the syntax is a little different. What we're going to do now is declare a state variable called player score. This will keep track of our player score here. Player score is going to be set to 0. We're going to need to keep track of our player selection. Make sure we can compare it against the computer selection. We're going to set that to an empty string because we don't know what it is yet. Okay. We're going to need a way to handle draws. So we have number of draws variable. Set that equal to 0. And now we'll have our computer variables. We'll set this to a computer score. Set that equal to 0. And we're going to need a random computer selection as a computed property. Computer properties are just a way of running custom code into a variable without really needing a function. Computer property can be very useful for small mathematical equations, or just picking, like in this instance, a random integer to choose a choice from an array. So we're going to declare this as computer selection. We're going to tell them we want a string, so some curly brackets, and then we're going to have we're going to need a choices, an array. It's going to equal a get random choice. This will bring back a string of the object that we pull out of at a random integer. Alright, that should be it for our variables. And now we're going to declare some functions, get the logic for this app going. So we're going to declare, I think, four main functions. We're going to have one that switches the view into the game view. We're going to have a function that resets the game variables. Call that restart game. We're going to have a function to ask a new question every time the user clicks on a button. And then we're also going to have another function to determine who wins the round of said question. So first we're going to declare a function of, what did I say was the first one? Play game. And this will return nothing. Just toggle our first view from true to false, and our game view from false to true. And we're going to declare a function to play the game. Play the game. Yeah, we already did that one. Function that resets the variables. So restart game. Same thing. It's not going to return anything. It's going to reset all the values. Question count equal to 0. Player score is equal to 0. Computer score equal to 0. And number of draws equal to 0. We're going to start question count back to 1. Our next function we are going to declare for is an ask a new question. That will return nothing, and this will need to determine whether or not we have enough questions asked or not. If the question count is less than max, we will increment question count by 1 and shuffle our array to get a random choice each time. else, we will just toggle the view to our final view. So we'll set our game view equal to false and our first view equal to false as well. Okay, that's it for this one, and we need one more function to determine who wins. Same thing, returning nothing. And this will contain the logic. So what we need to do is we need to determine our win cases, our lose cases, put the draw cases in the middle here. So we have, if the computer selection is equal to rock and player selection is equal to rock, paper, we'll lose here, or win cases. Or computer selection equals paper and player selection equals scissors. Or computer selection equals scissors and player selection equals rock. And we shall increment player score by 1. I'm going to do an else if statement. If computer selection equals rock and player selection equals rock, or computer selection equals paper, or computer selection equals scissors. Then number of draws will increment. And for our lose cases, it's just anything else. Increment computer score. Alright, that's it for our logic. Just double check everything makes sense. Computer selections rock, win, paper, paper, win, scissors, scissors, win, rock. Draw cases rock, rock, paper, paper, scissors, scissors. Let's get into the UI. Set up if statements to determine the views of the body. Now, the easiest way to change our views this early on is through if and else statements. There's a more comprehensive way I may plan to show you in the next workshop. Then I'll be able to switch between Swift files, transferring variables and all kinds of stuff. A little more in depth, so maybe next time. So first view we're going to set up is our first view, our game view, our final view. I'll set up some comments here. Easily see them from above here. Alright. And then what we're going to do is we're going to declare an if statement. So if first view is true, we shall run this set of code. Else if game view is true, run this set of code. Else run the final view. Let's get started on our first view here. We're going to set up a Z stack like I showed you before. This will take care of our background color. I'm going to declare that color .blue, and as you see, we'll get two safe spots. These are called the safe areas, designed for textual information on top, like the service bar, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, time. iOS reserves that space as safe so that we don't put anything in that area. Colors are fine, so we could ignore this. As long as it's in the Z stack and we don't stack over that specific area. Now we're going to set up a V stack. V stack is going to contain all of our elements. We're going to have 3 in total for this screen. We're going to have a title, a name text field for the user to input their name so that it's usable for the rest of the game. And we're going to have a start button, which allows us to switch between our first view and our game view. So let's start off with some text. We're going to have rock, paper, scissors, and we'll say welcome to. Alright, we're going to use our custom modifier tab here to insert some font of large title, and we're going to have a dot bold in there as well. You'll see that populate on the screen here. We're going to have a text field, and this object is going to accept a name variable and all of its modifiers. So we're going to text field cannot conform to view here. Enter our name, and we're going to bind this text to our name variable. Okay, and this will have a modifier padding of 20. We will add a frame of 375 pixels by 75. We will set the background color to white, make it stand out here. And we'll make a clip shape of the box to make it more iOS-like. Those round edges. We're going to make this a rounded rectangle with a corner radius. What did we say? 10? 15. Let's go. Okay. And let's add a little bit of shadow here. For the color, of dot black, a radius of 10, and we are going to utilize the x-axis with a degree of 8 and a y-axis with a degree of 2. This makes it really stand out as something you want to touch and feel. Give it that 3D touch it effect, I like to call it. Alright, now we have 2 elements. I think we're set with those. And our third element, we want to add a button, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to add a button. We're going to have the string inside the button say let's play. We're going to have a role of dot none. Other roles like dot destructive and dot delete that assign, or rather give the text a different color, or those will be utilized in different types of buttons that we're going to be using later maybe. And our action is going to be play game. Now, what happens with buttons? iOS chooses the color blue, and unfortunately our background is blue. So we can barely see that it's under there. We look real hard. It's there. We're just going to have to customize it. So I made custom modifiers before this. So we're going to use another custom modifier again in the end view for a button. But I like to keep everything basically similar, the same copacetic throughout the entire program. Makes it much easier on the eyes, and it's easier to reuse and reuse code. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go down to our other structs. We're going to import our add modifiers that I made. So in essence, the most important thing is that you should worry about is these modifiers. Just like we were using a few minutes ago, dot frame, dot background, dot clip shape, dot font. It's all the same stuff. Dot shadow. Focus on the modifiers. Get those down, and then as you gradually progress, you'll start to understand that you can reuse and reuse, create structs, make my first background, and then we'll use an extension call to add to your object a modifier, and that modifier will take in your struct, and that's exactly how you implement those custom modifiers. As long as they conform to some view and they are of view modifier protocol accepted, you're good to go. So we're going to go back up top, and we're going to change this button to our new modifier, which is .add button style, and you'll see that this button now will take in tint of blue, font title 2, bold, frame width 200, height of 65, background of white, clip shape, round rectangle, same as before, and that same shadow effect, which is real nice. Okay. So now we notice it's a little congested here, and we just want to stiffen things up and make them really pop on their own. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some spacing in here. SwiftUI uses custom spacer functions to utilize the screen space available. So smaller devices can also utilize the same type of space between your objects that you're using. So for instance, our VStack here, we can add a spacer above this text object, and you'll see everything start to move to the bottom of the screen. It'll use as much space as it possibly can up top and push all your objects down to utilize the rest of the space, however big your objects are. We'll add one within here, and you'll see the space between the title and the available space being split up in half. Same thing will happen basically just a huge fraction. These things start to push and start to come across much easier on the eyes now. And that it will be our final first view. In my opinion, it looks great. And we're ready to move on to our second view. In order to access our second view, we're going to have to switch from our first view and game view. We're going to change these to true and false and true. So let's just get a preview what a real simulator looks like and how we'd access and touch these buttons on the screen and see if they actually work. The play button will actually run a simulation on an iOS-sized device on screen, rather than this small preview that you can zoom in and zoom out of. Here's our nice iPhone 13 Pro Max. And in a second it should populate our first screen view. Boom. Looks nice. You know, you can access the home buttons, the side buttons here, swipe up. Let's see if we type our name here. This is what we're aiming for our next screen. Alright. Let's get into our second view. Alright. So we're going to set up another Z-stack with a color of .blue. Ignore the safe area. Set up a V-stack of our objects. For this V-stack, like you saw in that preview, we're going to have a title text, a section containing a V-stack of the computer's choice and an image. And underneath that, we're going to have a section of an H-stack, which gives us the player options to choose from with a title. And underneath that, we'll have a V-stack of our scoring options. So in our initial V-stack, create enough space here. We're going to start with our text. And we're going to label it same as before. So let's jump right up here. Throw that right in there. Down here, we'll have a section with a header of text as computer chose. Underneath this section, we're going to have a section with a header of text player, which is now what we have considered as name choices. And then under that, we're going to have a V-stack of two text objects, string interpolations. Now I'm just going to dynamically show you all the variables being updated that we have so far. So the first one's going to be our player score. We'll do player selection, then we'll do computer selection. We'll do player score, do computer score, and we will do number of draws, and we will do our question count. Next, we're going to get our images populated. We didn't update these variables here, so our new view can be shown. Resume this. We're going to get our variables, our pictures shown here. Do an H stack of a for each loop. Now these for each loops will run designated amount of times. In this case, less than 3 times, less than our array size. And it's going to take each one of those instances, assign it to an image, a number, and we're going to loop through a button that will run some actions with a label of an image that we designate as our choices image. And in this button, each time it is clicked, it will assign a player selection to our choice image. It will ask who wins, and it will also ask another question depending on if we're at our max questions or not. So we have most of our UI done. Let's get this section in here of an image. We're going to say this was our computer selection. And it's in text saying computer chose sorry, we already had that up there. It's going to be the same thing, computer selection. Just to give an image, text image description of what was chosen. Just like before, I think we're done with the UI elements. We just need to make it look pretty. So for our top, I don't think, let's add some, we do have a font title. Alright, for our section here, we're going to add a background style that I chose before. It's a nice big opaque box. We're going to add it to this VStack containing these objects here. Just neaten this up here, do a Control-I, because indentation correctly, and then we're going to add my first background style. This should give it a nice big square background. It's got a title up top, image in the middle, description on the bottom. For the second section, this H-stack is going to take in my second background style. It's going to be another big box, same as before, just with a wider girth. It's going to have name with the choices right above it. And then for our images, we need to add a shadow. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a shadow color radius of, what did we say before, .black, with a radius of 10, x of 8, and a y of 2. That should give it really nice feel to what we had in the first thing, to let people know there's a 3D image, 3D button to press, something to utilize. Alright, and as far as these objects go, we'll leave them for now. See if they update, and we'll add some spacers in a second. We'll run this just to make sure that our buttons are being tapped, our information's being updated. What we have here is our paper. We didn't put in a name before, but these buttons are being pressed. We just lost twice. See if we could draw once and win once. Player score, beat the rock. All right, everything updates seamlessly, nicely. It should branch off to our final view, which hasn't been designed yet. But now we'll add some custom modifiers to this VStack here. We'll do a font of title, bold, and we're just worried about these scores here. Everything looks good. Let's add those spacers we were talking about before. We got our VStack of our objects, so we're going to split the space here. We're going to split the space here. We're going to split the space here. And we're going to split the space here. And one underneath as well. Boom. Nice width of the screen, height of the screen, everything's spaced out pretty evenly. Designated where you're looking up, right up top in the middle, it's one object. It's beautiful. All right. Second view is done. On to our third view. This will require, again, that we change our values up top here to both false. And we can start with our third. Final view should go rather smoothly. It's a rather easy one now that we have all the basics down. So we're going to set up another Z-stack here. Color.blue, keep it going. Ignore that safe area. Set up another V-stack. And we're in this V-stack, we're going to have a title. We're going to have the scores, statistics, and we're going to have another button to let the user go back and start another game. So let's get this VStack going with a title, text, which is going to be, let's say, game over. Another text, we're going to do thanks for playing with the user's name. Okay. We're going to add some .font, .large title here. Spacer. VStack encompass these guys. Spacer here. We're going to make another VStack with scoring information. And that's going to contain this same information up here. Also have number of draws. And a ratio of player score to max questions. 0 to 10, player score, VStack, and now our button. Where's our button? Somewhere in the middle there. And here we're going to add a modifier, add my button style. And we are looking to be in good shape. Let's change up this text here to a foreground color of dot white and add some boldness to it. Give it that I'm on top. Hell, why not? Got font here of title. Let's even add a little emoji. Refactor this and rename it. We made it a nerd emoji. So yeah, that's pretty much the basics of it. We're gonna run this and let you see the end product here. Should update. We have an error somewhere. Private var nerd emoji. Needs to make this a double quote. I think that should run everything. Let's run it and see our final product. Let's make this on its own line here. See the final product. True and false and run. enter our name here. Welcome to rock, paper, scissors. Player score, computer score. Paper goes over rock. Let's see if we can win this one. Oh, we got a tie at best. Maybe not. Thanks for playing, guys.